Greetings, esteemed guests. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the 24th Dr. Charles Perkins AO Memorial Oration and Prize. My name is Lisa Jackson-Pulver. I serve here at the University as the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Indigenous Strategies and Services. My co-host for the evening, I'm very pleased to say, is Professor Teela Reid. Teela is a Senior Solicitor in Aboriginal Land Rights and the inaugural First Nations Lawyer in Residence here at the Sydney Law School. Teela, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yama, thank you so much for the generous introduction, Professor Lisa Jackson-Pulver. My name is Teela Reid. As we commence business this evening, I have the absolute privilege of introducing the most important part. Please welcome Uncle Chika Madden to perform the Welcome to Country. Uncle Chika.
Thank you. Good evening, folks. My name is Charles Madden, but known around the inner city of Sydney as Chika. Now, that's a nickname that I got many, many years ago going to Redfern Public School, which is now NCIE, the National Centre of Indigenous Excellence. Folks, I'm from Gadigal land, Aboriginal land. That's the land we're on at the moment. For many, many years, I've lived and worked around the city of Sydney. I've been involved with quite a few Aboriginal organisations over the years. I've been a director with the Aboriginal Medical Service at Redfern for over 40 years. Also a director with the Redfern Aboriginal Housing Company, Aboriginal Hostels Australia, and the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council. I've got to mention it, folks. Also, a life member of the Redfern All Blacks Rugby League Football Club. Thank you. Folks, for many, many years I've lived and worked around the city of Sydney. I'd like to take this opportunity this evening to extend a warm and sincere welcome to all of my Aboriginal brothers and sisters, non-Aboriginal brothers and sisters. If we have any brothers and sisters here from the Torres Strait or further afar across the seas, welcome. Welcome to Gadigal land. The Gadigal clan is one of 29 that makes up the Eora Nation. The Eora Nation is bordered by 3 distinctive landmarks. We have the Hawkesbury River to the north, Nepean to the west, and the Georges River to the south. Those 3 rivers form the boundaries of the Eora Nation. Folks, if you've travelled across this great city of ours today, the state or this great country, or from afar, welcome. Welcome to Gadigal land. Enjoy your stay. Have a safe and trouble-free trip home. Once again, welcome, welcome, welcome. Enjoy the evening, folks. Thank you.
Don't we always feel welcomed when we hear Uncle Chika speak? Thank you so much, Uncle. I pay respects to this beautiful country. Right now, we have a couple of apologies here for attendance here at this wonderful event. Our Chancellor and our Vice-Chancellor, though, have got some very special messages for us.
Good evening and welcome to the University of Sydney. I'm sorry I'm unable to be with you in person this evening at such a special event in the university's calendar. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to the traditional custodian and elders of this land, past and present. The Dr. Charles Perkins AO Memorial Oration and Prize is one of the university's most significant events. It's a time for us to reflect on the enduring legacy of Dr. Perkins, the first Indigenous Australian to graduate from the University of Sydney, and a trailblazer in the fight for Indigenous rights. This year's orator is an extraordinary individual whose work and achievements embody the spirit of this event, Mr. Joshua Creamer, the chair of the Queensland Truth-Telling and Healing Inquiry. Joshua is a proud Wanyee and Kalkadoon man and a distinguished barrister who continues to make substantial contributions to the legal and truth-telling landscape of our nation. His work, particularly in advancing Indigenous rights and social justice, is transformational and has had and will continue to have a profound impact on the lives of many. Joshua serves as the chair of the Truth-Telling and Healing Inquiry in Queensland, a vital initiative focused on uncovering the truth about the historical injustices faced by Indigenous communities. Through his role, he is leading efforts to ensure that the voices of those who have endured systemic discrimination and abuse are heard, and that their experiences are acknowledged and addressed. His leadership is a testament to the deep commitment to justice, reconciliation, and healing for Indigenous Australians. The importance of hearing Joshua speak tonight cannot be overstated. We live in a time when conversations about truth-telling, reconciliation, and equity are more crucial than ever. Joshua's insights offer us a unique opportunity to reflect on both the progress we have made and, very importantly, the challenges that still lie ahead. Joshua's oration is a powerful reminder of the responsibility we all share in shaping a future where everyone can thrive. His words will challenge us, inspire us, and I hope motivate us to take meaningful action in the pursuit of a more just and inclusive society. For the University of Sydney, this oration is a cornerstone of our commitment to reconciliation and the celebration of Indigenous knowledge and culture. It is a moment for us to come together as a community to listen, to learn, and to reaffirm our dedication to the values that Dr. Perkins championed, values that continue to guide us to this day. I'm looking forward to watching the recording of the event. Thank you and wishing you a wonderful evening.
Good evening and welcome to this year's Dr. Charles Perkins Memorial Prize and Oration. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to the traditional custodians of this land, as well as all the lands on which the university sits. We're honoured to have Joshua Creamer deliver this year's oration. Mr. Creamer's work has had a profound impact on the legal landscape in Australia, particularly through his involvement in landmark cases such as Wooden versus the State of Queensland, commonly known as the Palm Island case, and Pearson versus the State of Queensland, also known as the Stolen Wages case. The latter is recognised as Australia's largest human rights case, underscoring Joshua's commitment to justice and equity. Joshua is also chair of the Truth-Telling and Healing Inquiry in Queensland and a current member of the Griffith University Council after being appointed in 2020. Joshua's expertise has not gone unnoticed as he is constantly ranked by Chambers and Partners Asia Pacific Guide and Doyle's Guide for his exceptional work in the native title jurisdiction. In 2017, he was honoured as the National Indigenous Legal Professional of the Year, and in 2016, he was acknowledged by Chambers and Partners Asia Pacific as one of Australia's outstanding young lawyers. These awards, along with his appointment to the board of Legal Aid Queensland, reflect his dedication to advancing the rights of Indigenous Australians and his deep commitment to social justice. I'd also like to take a moment to recognise the recipients of the Dr. Charles Perkins AO Memorial Prize. Congratulations to Aitan Harris, Nicholas Astle, Malia Garay and Ray Anderson. Well done on earning this significant achievement. I wish you the very best in all your future endeavours. Your achievements inspire us. This prestigious award is given to students who exemplify academic excellence and embody the spirit of Dr. Perkins' legacy. These outstanding students are the future leaders of our nation, and their achievements are a testament to the power of education in driving social change. I'm confident tonight's event will be both inspiring and thought-provoking. I extend my deepest gratitude to Mr. Creamer for his participation and to all of you for your continued commitment to justice and equality. Thank you.
Each year, as the Vice-Chancellor mentioned, we have the honour of awarding the Charles Perkins Memorial Prize. This prize recognises the academic achievement amongst our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. This year, we have got 4 recipients, 3 of whom are with us this evening, and I can see them smiling up there, down on the front page. So let's have a look at who we've got here. Aitan Harris, come on up. You are from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. Our second recipient is Nicholas Astle from the Sydney Conservatorium of Music. Our third recipient is Malia Garay from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. Our fourth recipient is not able to be with us tonight, but Ray Anderson is also from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, so let's give her a round of applause as well. We commend all of our award winners for their dedication, their hard work and their unwavering commitment to excellence in their studies. Please join me in a further round of applause to celebrate these outstanding students.
Before we commence the oration, we have a very special musical performance for you. Please welcome the beloved singer, songwriter and Aranda and Gurindji man, Dan Sultan.
Well, there's a note on my door. We don't want you around. And I felt the fear the first time that I found out, and I was just a boy. And I carry the weight. Now that I'm older, it sits on my shoulder. You tell me to cast it away. You tell me how I'm meant to feel. Tell me my past and my shame isn't real. You're entitled to think what you like is true. Well, this story is mine. Now you broadcast your words down your gold microphone, designed to remind them that this ain't my home anymore. But I know who I am, my blood to the core, and I'll tell my children that there'll be no more no's Tell me the cost either way, and tell me how I'm meant to feel. Tell me my past and my shame. Is it real? Is it real? You're entitled to think what you like is true. Well, this story is mine. You're entitled to think what you like is true. Well, this story is mine. It's true. This story is mine. It's true. True. This story is mine.
Thank you so much, Dan. I feel like you truly have the gift of singing with the voice of our ancestors. Thank you. This year's oration will be given by Joshua Kramer, a barrister who has worked tirelessly throughout his career on some of the most historic Indigenous cases. He's currently the chair of the Truth Telling and Healing Inquiry in Queensland. It is now with my greatest pleasure that I introduce to you Wani and Kalkadoo man, Joshua Kramer.
Thank you. I wanted to acknowledge Uncle Chika for his welcome, also acknowledge the Gadigal people, part of the Eora Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge Rachel and the Perkins family. It was such an honour to get the call from Rachel earlier this year. I'm not someone who's really interested in personal accolades, but to be able to stand in the shadows of a man like Charles Perkins here tonight is a really significant point in my life, and very grateful to you, Rachel, and the family. And I'll also acknowledge separately the really generous welcomes by the Vice-Chancellor and the Chancellor. I do just want to say that in all those cases, I'm part of a very big legal team. I'm a small part of a very big legal team, and some of those here from the most important cases, Chris Ronalds and I worked together on the Palm Island case, and we've got Julia here tonight from the Truth Telling Inquiry, and Paris and I worked on the stolen generation cases and stolen wages cases together. So it's nice to get the accolades, but there's a big team that sits behind you on those cases. My name is Joshua Kramer, and like Charles Perkins, much of my work has been concerned with social justice and the recognition of rights of our First Peoples. I don't for a moment, though, profess to measure up to his achievements. None could, and nor should we try to. The man stands as a giant of our history. As you've heard, I am Wanya in Kalkadoon, and that is through my mother, Sandra Kramer, near Leon. Sandra is the youngest of 12 children of Moody Leon and Gladys Alston. Gladys passed away when my mother was only a few months old. Gladys was the daughter of Kalkadoon man Jack Alston and East Arundel woman Alice Campbell, also known as Alice Thompson. Surnames were often changed to suit the pastoral property owners in the early days, and we think this is why Alice has two surnames. Alice was born in Santa Teresa on East Arundel country in the Northern Territory. Gladys was also born in the Territory along the Rankin River. Jack Alston was the daughter of Sophie, a Kalkadoon woman, and Norman Stewart. He was known to be a clever man among the Kalkadoon. On my Wanyi side, my great-grandfather Samar Bao was a Chinese man who, like many of his time, came for the lure of gold and other riches. He found riches in the form of a Wanyi woman named Opal. and together they had a plot of land in a place called Louis Creek near Lawn Hill in the Gulf of Carpentaria, where Opal acted as midwife to many of the other Aboriginal women. Their daughter Loma Arbau married a Chinese man, Sam Leon, also known as Sam R. Saul. Sam and Loma settled in Kemmerwell on the Northern Territory border. My grandparents Gladys and Moody moved to Mount Isa in 1948, and ever since, it's a place that my family call home. This introduction of myself and my connection to Kalkadoon, Wanyi and East Aranda country is something I know, had I been speaking with Charles today, a Kalkadoon and Aranda man, we would have had the same discussion. As we would have tried to find a way to make our kinship systems meet. Like a lock on a vault, we would have turned the dial left and right until we could unlock those important connections to understand how it is we are related to each other. Are we friend, family, kin? Are we something more? It is the same conversation I've had many hundreds of times across Australia where we as Aboriginal people still understand the importance of connection both to each other and to country. This connection to each other as people is in many ways a direct contrast to a recent survey I read published in the media in September. The survey highlighted that at the time of last year's referendum, only 3% of Australians had direct engagement with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. That data, while not surprising, at least to me, who for 2 decades now has realised that in the many circles I roam, I'm often the only Aboriginal person in the room. The survey, though, did give me cause to reflect. While few might know us, many hold views. And those views are often strongly held. And in some circles, the views are quite negative. To answer the question of why so many hold views without a direct relationship with us, we must turn to our history to understand our truth. An example of that history actually sits on a book in my desk at the moment. It's called the Australian Handbook and Shippers and Importers Directory from 1894. It's a type of almanac for those travelling to or doing trade with Australia at that time. In it, we are described as follows. The Aboriginal inhabitants of Australia belong to the Ethiopic, which is the lowest family on the human race. They are ranked by ethnologists in the Papuan or Austral Negro scale, but forming a special type and are believed to be some remnant of an ancient and peculiar race. Their religious and intellectual condition is apparently of the lowest kind. During my work on the stolen wages cases across Queensland, the Northern Territory and Western Australia, and the stolen generation case in the Northern Territory, it became obvious to me that the only way such policies could have been justified was on the basis that from the earliest stages of colonisation, Aboriginal people were deemed inferior. That label of inferiority created a hierarchy and ensured our division, excluding Aboriginal people from the privileges enjoyed by others. For those who have read the Mabo No. 2 case, it stands testament to this history. In that case, the High Court noted, as the Indigenous inhabitants of a settled colony were regarded as low in the scale of social organisation, they and their occupancy of colonial land were ignored. The state of Australian Aborigines was thought barbarous and so entirely destitute of the rudest forms of civil polity that their claims, whether as sovereigns or proprietors of the soil, had been utterly disregarded. While the descriptions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as barbarians and savages might sound perverse, it is important to appreciate that this concept underpinned our laws in relation to land in Australia until the 1990s. It was only when the Mabo decision overturned the doctrine of terra nullius in 1993 was the myth finally busted. Like all of Australia, Queensland has a remarkable history. Through my work, I've grown a great love of Australia's history and an even greater love for the people who've lived it. Whilst the 1788 landing of Arthur Phillip had no immediate effect in Queensland, It wasn't until decades later that we start to see the practical consequences were felt to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. The colony of Queensland was established in 1859, and you might have seen over the weekend President Biden apologise for the United States' role in the running of abusive Native American boarding schools for more than 150 years. We had them here. In 1865, Queensland passed the Industrial and Reformatory Schools Act. That act became a precursor for the dormitory system in Queensland. Aboriginal children weren't the only ones caught by the legislation. However, under Section 6 of that Act, Aboriginal children were automatically deemed neglected and removed to an industrial reformatory school for no less than 1 year, no more than 7. It is estimated that around the time of Philip's arrival, the population of Aboriginal people in Queensland was around 200,000 to 300,000 people. By the 1890s, that population had been decimated. The simple reason being that land, cattle and sheep were of far greater value than the life of an Aboriginal people. As an example, Mearns, who wrote about the Wapplebarra on Keppel Islands in central Queensland, says this: a population of 60 for Great Keppel was quoted in the Rockhampton Bulletin in 1867, and a further 25 for North Keppel. In 1865, a sheep station was established on North Keppel. There was a large-scale slaughter of Keppel Islanders in 1882, in reprisal for them killing sheep to eat. In 1883, most of the remaining Wapplebarra moved to Ross Creek near Yeppoon and fed poisoned flour. Some tried to escape and swim to Great Keppel. When James Lucas took over the sheep farming in the late 1800s, he took to chaining recalcitrant Aboriginal workers in a tidal cave where they were left to drown at high tide. My family lives not far from the Keppel Islands, and that cave can still be visited today. Our label of inferiority deemed us worthless in the early days of colonisation, and the social hierarchy embedded division and ensured our destruction. By the time the Aboriginal and Restriction of Sale of Opium Act 1897 was passed in Queensland, the Aboriginal population was no more than 25,000. Almost 90% of the population perished between 1830 and 1890 in a single person's lifetime. While the commencement of the protection regime saw 22,000 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders move to church-run missions and government settlements across the state, these locations anthropologist Peter Sutton described as concentration villages. It was during this period that missions such as Palm Island, Warrabinda, Cherbourg and Yarrabah, communities which still exist today, were established as a means to ensure the Indigenous population was excluded from the rest. Division and inferiority continued to haunt us, and by this time we were considered a doomed race destined to die out. The missions and reserves ensured total control of the Aboriginal population, as we were now subjects to both the demands and abuses of white masters. Empowered by legislation and titled protectors, they controlled every aspect of the daily life from cradle to grave. The practice of culture in Queensland was prohibited, and within a generation, the ability for us to speak our languages and know the intimate detail of our laws and customs was almost quashed. Not unlike the prohibition that applied to First Nations children in dormitories in the United States. The difference, though, in Queensland was in missions, they applied those measures to all, men, women and children, and the blanket prohibition proved effective. Palm Island, termed Punishment Island, was a prison of all prisons when it was established by the Queensland Government in 1918. Almost 20 kilometres from the mainland, isolation and a perilous time for its inmates ensured. To give some context to the dire conditions, in 1936, authorities were warned that rations on Palm Island were critically deficient in protein and fats. The superintendent ordered that 1 bullock a week be killed to feed the population. That was supposed to be the food supply for 1,100 Aboriginal people living on Palm Island at the time, plus the white officials. In 1944, the infant mortality rate on Palm Island was 15 times the rest of Queensland. But the words of an Aboriginal female inmate in 1948 best capture the experiences of women who, despite their age, were locked in dormitories. Her letter reads as follows. We girls are locked in this dormitory at 5 o'clock in the evening, and we're there until 6 a.m. We're getting no outing. Our backyard is only a square of about 60 by 60 feet. Our pleasures are pictures once a week, a dance for once a week for an hour, and of course our church services. I feel justified in writing you this letter about the way we girls are treated. Before we're able to go to any of these pleasures, we're not spoken to as human beings. We're spoken to in this manner. Now girls, get out and water the garden or else there will be no pleasures for you, and you will be punished from anything from 1 month to 3 months. Should we step over the piece of ground which is allotted to us, we will get jail. We are not allowed any freedoms at all. We cannot even walk across to the sweet stalls and buy ourselves an ice cream. There are a lot of good and trusted girls in this dormitory. Why can't they be allowed out each day? Sorry. So, do you consider these rules are all above board, or do you think them a little inhumane? I blame these rules over us girls, which make some of them unbalanced, and which cause them to break out of the dormitory and run away. When one girl runs away, the rope is tightened all the more. It is the ones that do try to live by the rules and help the staff on this island who suffer most. I myself have done my best, but as these rules stand, I'm afraid I will break them by running away. One girl has gone now for the fortnight. When they get her, she will get jail for 6 weeks or maybe more on bread and water. But the girl is not to blame at all. Should we get a little more freedom without having the police over us all the time, I'm sure the girls will be more content. This is all I'm going to say. I hope you will do something for us. Sincerely yours. While the Protection Era legislation did not achieve its purpose of excluding us to far-off locations while the population died out, it did, however, maintain our label of inferiority, entrenching our social and economic disadvantage for decades to come. During the 1970s, it was reported that there were 165 houses for 1,300 people on Palm Island, leading to extreme overcrowding. By 1981, unemployment across all Aboriginal communities in Queensland was 92.5%. This history was acutely relevant to my work as part of the legal team on the Palm Island class action. A first-of-its-kind case where an Aboriginal community sued a state for racial discrimination and was successful. As the court was imminently aware in that case, we cannot function in the present if we do not know the truth of our past. During the Protection Era, the labels attached to us changed. While our lives mattered little, our ability to work hard became valuable. Anthropologists describe this as the change from the keeping out period to the letting in period. To survive, the economy of Queensland had to grow, and we became a ready source of free or cheap labour. Stolen wages in Queensland, the Northern Territory and Western Australia has its differences. In Queensland, wages were actually stolen, kept by the government. Wages were paid from the employer to the state, and those wages were kept by the state. Simple. In the Northern Territory and Western Australia, and particularly the Kimberley and the Pilbara, there were simply no wages at all. In the Northern Territory and Western Australia, there was a much greater obsession with children of mixed descent. They became the targets for removal. In Queensland, the missions housed generations of families, usually divided by gender and age. In the Territory and Western Australia, the missions were predominantly used to house the children of mixed descent. The second wave of settlement in the Kimberley wasn't until the 1920s, and even by this date, the life of an Aboriginal person mattered little. For example, it's well documented that one of the early pioneering families in the East Kimberley had an arrangement with police where their men would not be charged or prosecuted for killing Aboriginal people. The 1935 Moseley Royal Commission in Western Australia was appointed to investigate, report and advise upon matters in relation to the condition and treatment of Aborigines. It made the following findings. In the Kimberleys, the native is not paid, which appears to be of no great disadvantage to the native. One could not, even with extreme imagination, visualise a native of the Kimberleys settled on his own property. What other use would money be to him? It's a pity that all cannot be continually employed. The native is naturally lazy, and it is wrong that he should be fed without giving something in return. On slavery, the Commission found much has been said by certain people before the Commission of the lack of freedom of the natives. Extravagant expressions have been used, forced labour and slavery have been suggested. This wasn't a view shared by the Commissioner. However, the Commissioner did note, if the non-payment of wages is evidence of slavery conditions, then in many cases the term is justified. While the labels of inferiority continued to plague us well into the 20th century and our worth meant little to men like Commissioner Moseley, we held our own views. The most apt example is not long after the findings of the Moseley Royal Commission. In the 1940s, Aboriginal stockmen in the Pilbara began to strike. Perspectives are important in history, and the documentary record is not always truth. Moseley's perceptions were not held by the Aboriginal men themselves. However, despite their protests, Aboriginal life continued to matter little in the social hierarchy. Mulla was a government-run station established in Western Australia in 1910. In 1929, Chief Protector A.O. Neville wrote that people did not get any food unless they had first performed some useful service. A documented event in Mulla, both brutal and striking in its detail, highlights the little value placed on Aboriginal life by many of the government officials of the time. In 1943, a number of white employees tortured Aboriginal men over the course of a week at the government-run station. Several Aboriginal men were tied to a post and flogged with the stock whip, which was a common form of punishment in the Kimberley at the time. Shocks were given to their genitals from 6 car batteries rigged up, wires connected to batteries to a small wooden box, and insulation wires connected the box to a short metal rod which was used to electrocute the men who were tied to the post. One single period of torture lasted 36 hours. The Commissioner of Native Affairs did eventually launch an investigation into the conduct, and a recommendation was made as follows: that if the accused were dispensed with, every half-caste and native of Mulla would be aware of the reason for their dismissal and take advantage of it. The men who inflicted the torture were deemed to be impossible to replace and maintain their positions at the station. It is important to note, though, that our allies have never been silent to our treatment. There were critics to exonerations of the white employees, and the superintendent of the Forest River Mission argued, when a case is between a black and white, the law is a travesty in these areas. I'm afraid the average white man in the Kimberley views a black in the same way as he views his dog. If he is a good dog and does as he is told, the better ones will trust him well. But should he attempt to take the liberty of claiming rights of his own, then like a dog, he must be shown who's boss. One last case I must mention is the Northern Territory Stolen Generation case. And in doing so, I pay homage to Eileen Cummins and other members of the Stolen Generation Corporation in Darwin. It was their tenacity that convinced the team to commence a class action, which ultimately had an effect on the apology from Prime Minister Scott Morrison and later a reparation scheme in the amount of $380 million. The removal of Aboriginal children across the country was common, but in the Northern Territory the practice was particularly stark. The minuteness of the Northern Territory population and its economy meant that many Aboriginal children were sent interstate across Australia. The children who were perhaps 5 or 6 at least had some recollection of their identity and their country. The ones taken as babies and toddlers had no chance of recollection. They are the true stolen generation. It was the loss of identity was only then compounded by the practice of baptisms, which led to name changes. And many of those are still lost. It's interesting that during the course of this practice in the Northern Territory and across the country, that the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide was ratified by Australia on 8 July 1949. Article 2 of the Convention defines genocide to mean any of the following acts: committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial or religious group as such, including forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Despite Australia's eagerness to support the Convention, it was one of the first nations to ratify that Convention. Perhaps because of Australia's treatment of its Indigenous inhabitants, Australia did not legislate to implement the Convention until 5 decades later, until the passing of the International Criminal Court Amendment Act in 2002. Only then did genocide become a crime in Australia. Our history is our truth, and while it may not be widely acknowledged, it is buried just below the surface in the minds of those who've lived it. There must be a proper account of our history. Professor Hannah Arendt argued that for a society to move forward, it must account for its past. Truth-telling helps bring a collective memory that is accurate and just, ensuring that future generations understand the realities of history rather than a sanitised version that ignores suffering and injustice. The truth-telling process that we've been involved with in Queensland is not about laying blame and guilt with today's generation. It's a necessary act of justice. It is grounded in the belief that ethical societies must confront and acknowledge past wrongs to establish justice. And without truth, any attempts at reconciliation are superficial, as they do not address the underlying injustices. What has struck me most about my work on the inquiry is that those who suffered most under our legislation, the ones who've been abused, who've been raped, who've been victimised, are the ones today working hardest for reconciliation. Truth-telling is our foundation for an authentic future, and it allows for a truthful reckoning with the past. Philosophers like Desmond Tutu, who we know led South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, argue that without truth, reconciliation is impossible because it would be based on falsehoods and denials. And truth-telling, importantly, is central to healing, and I've seen that over the course of our hearings in Queensland. Without truth, healing cannot occur. And being suppressed or denied truth has only served to perpetuate the trauma for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I've seen truth-telling which has allowed individuals and communities to process their experiences, to validate their pain, and to be on a path to healing. As Australians, we often obsess about our histories of conflicts in other countries. I certainly do, which is often seen as forging the identity of our young nation. Concerningly, though, insufficient attention has been paid to the history and experiences most foundational to the establishment of our country. The events that occurred here on the very grounds on which we stand and walk every day. The ones who now shout loudest about threats of division acknowledge little of the division which is a legacy of our past. If they did, they would understand the cries for truth are to heal the wounds of division. And our cries for equity are to overcome the history of inferiority. Efforts to overcome the legacy of labels and divisions of our past should not be confused with an attempt to interfere with our future. Thank you.
That was really inspiring. Thank you.
share with you. Believe it.
There we've got a couple. It was amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joshua. That was extremely inspiring, and I'm so grateful you got to walk us through some really important parts of a very intricate history and highlighting the importance of truth and truth-telling to our nation's healing. But in addition to that, I also think that your work speaks profoundly as well to the importance of truth-telling and engaging our people in economic prosperity in such cases as stolen generations matters and stolen wages. To bring tonight's oration to a close, we'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Joshua for his powerful words and insights. This gift that Lisa has is a token of our appreciation for your contributions to this evening and your ongoing dedication to justice and truth-telling. Thank you. Please put your hands together for Josh.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight for what has been a very profound oration. We know that this evening has been thought-inspiring, it's been thought-provoking, and I know that this is going to have a lot of conversations over dining room tables and classrooms and other spaces for a long time to come. Finally, we have something else in store for you, and to enjoy this moment together and to meditate upon what we've learnt tonight, we have the wonderful Paul Kelly, who will be singing his famous song, A Bastard Like Me, his very own tribute to the indomitable power and spirit of Dr. Charles Perkins.
I was born in the bush near old Alice Springs, as far as you get from the sea. My mother was a fighter, my daddy was too. He never knew a bastard like me. My brothers and sisters are scattered like the wind, from the desert and the hills to the sea. Much too young, many died, but I have survived. So lucky, a bastard like me. Ooh, so lucky, a bastard like me. I have survived a hell of a ride. Nobody knows a bastard like me. Call me a stray or a dog every day. Call me a mongrel half-breed. Mongrels are strong, so if you take me on, watch out for a bastard like me.
In Australia today, we have one of the greatest social and racial scandals I've ever seen.
Better watch out for a bastard like me. I've fought all the way, and I fight every day. We'll try and stop a bastard like me.
In white terms, you could call me a success story. Big black Commonwealth car, a nice house in a good suburb in Canberra, a university degree. It's just a load of crap. I'm so much of an exception that it's not funny, it's tragic.
I've taken my licks, I've taken my kicks. I am a man of degree. I wear the scars, I earn them so hard. Every day in the lucky country.
We ask her, please, lady, go home.
Every day in the lucky country. I've taken my licks and I've kicked against the pricks. I'll try and stop a bastard like me.
Thank you once again for coming and being a part of this 24th Oration. Next year, of course, is the 25th Oration, and we expect that you'll all be back again. So please, have safe travels to your home. Enjoy the discussions that you have. Join me in acknowledging all of the people who have managed to make this wonderful, wonderful evening together. And if you leave it for just a moment, there'll be some lovely flowers for you to take home as well. Good night, everybody. See you soon.